Hello, everyone. I'm here with Fritz. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. There was some technical problems on transit, so I was delayed for a
Freedom,
bit.
USA.
Yeah, it is. It is July 4th. Happy Independence Day, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I
I had
yeah,
hot
it's
dogs and I'm drinking beer.
hot dogs and beer. I mean, what can be more American and or German than that?
Well, as I think I said this to you on Discord, that America, at least ethnically among white Americans, is more of a German nation than a British nation at this point. I think it's 50 million Americans claim to have some German ancestry. And in a way, our country is more structured along German lines of being federal and more decentralized than, say, the UK.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's more Scotch Irish than there is English. Probably a lot more.
Well, I think that's largely people in the South.
Yeah, that's true. In Canada, Scottish people have always just been considered Anglo. There's never been a real distinction between the two.
Yeah, I think that was among the first waves of European immigrants was English, Welsh, Scottish, and Scotch Irish, which was North Irish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Irish wanted to leave until they're like, well, we can now go to America where we don't have to be under British rule at all. And the Germans were like, well, they can just set up nice farmlands out in the Midwest. So, like the German Americans actually didn't really stay in the cities for all that long because they tended to be, because they're Germans, more educated and just better, and so they were able to just sort of go off and make their own farms. The church I actually go to was originally founded by German Catholics.
Right. I know my mother's family were invited by Catherine the Great to Russia. They were Mennonites.
Oh, cool. My German ancestors, I have two great-great-grandparents that were from Germany. They were from Elsass-Lothringen, and they were Mennonites too.
Yeah, some of them were. Some of them were. It's a bunch of different Mennonites.
Mennonites are basically just the Amish that are allowed to have iPhones.
That's a good way of putting it.
When I worked at a museum that was sort of based in 19th century upstate New York history, we got a lot of Mennonite visitors, or maybe not that many groups of them, but they have so many children, so.
Yeah, it's not really the case. In Canada, they're extremely liberal. I don't know what they're like in the States, but here they're very yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing you're going to get with Protestantism is you get a wide range from conservative evangelicals to mainline. Have you seen there's the pictures going around of, I think she's a Lutheran pastor, which is just another reason why women should never ever be ordained in churches. Just like she's got all these tattoos, she's got short hair, and she's got the resting bitch face, and she like wears her shirt like it's like a tank top. What is whatever shirt priests wear? It's disturbing. I don't know if it's the same one that took all the purity rings and melted them down into a vagina-shaped sculpture.
Sounds like some Game of Thrones shit, like the Iron Throne.
Speaking of which, yeah, I'm going to like start. I think I only watched the first 3 seasons, and I think I'm just gonna go back and watch like because we're clearing out a whole bunch of our stuff, but I just snagged like we have like the first 5 seasons of it on Blu-ray, so I can watch the good seasons.
Yeah, those are the guys. I forget if season 5 was like where it started to go to crap.
But from what you've said, I actually sort of liked that. I think I really liked the image because I saw the video too of when the last dragon of Daenerys, just melts down the Iron Throne. I think that's probably a good like symbolic gesture that they did.
Yeah, it's not gonna. I severely doubt that the books are gonna end the same way. But
well, apparently George R.R. Martin doesn't have enough time to end the books, but he does have enough time to work with the guy that made Dark Souls to make a new Dark Souls game.
I actually am kind of forgiving because that could be potentially amazing.
Oh, so. Yeah. Like, I didn't really like Sekiro all that much, not because it's a bad game, but it's because I like the Dark Souls type more. Like, because Dark Souls is not actually all that difficult a game. It's more because the difficulty is baked in, because you can like get co-op, you can, just keep grinding until like,
Level, you
yeah.
can upgrade
Where
your
Sekiro
equipment.
is get good by being frame perfect on attacks.
Like, I'm not very good at video games in general, but I beat all 3 Souls. I could not beat the Ring City DLC. That's because my main character was on New Game Plus. Was the main issue. But
I love playing the playing remastered, and I just like going because the way the first game is structured is great, where you can just sort of choose your own path to get to a place. And I did a run where I went through Darkroot Garden first, killed the Black Knight, and got the Black Knight halberd. So I basically just had a giant lightsaber.
Oh, you got extremely lucky.
Well, I just did the cheat spawn thing where you can just spawn the item, because I was just going to keep, reloading the game over and over until I got it.
Right. Now, it was funny because DSP was when he was doing his playthrough of Dark Souls, he got the Black Knight's halberd and he used it for the rest of the game, and people said he was cheating by using it.
It sort of feels like it, because you can just kill the bell gargoyles in 2 hits. But what I did was, what was cool is I didn't kill them first. Is I went down and then killed Quelaag first. And if you kill Quelaag first and ring that bell, and then you ring the first bell of awakening, you get a longer animation of the giant opening up Sen's Funhouse. Right.
I like the have you heard the speculation that Sen is the Nameless King's real name?
Or it could be Faram. Though I've barely played any of the second one because I really didn't like it.
Oh, I'm the only person that's my favorite game in this series was 2.
I'm sure it has its own charms, but just a thing on Game of Thrones is have you ever seen Deadwood?
I've seen like 1 episode of Deadwood.
I love, because like what people know is like Al Swearington, the guy that just constantly swears and is like the tavern owner. I liked Razorfist was doing a stream, and it's like somebody asked him a question about like crossovers between like HBO shows, and he's like, "Oh, Al Swearington would have been running Westeros in a week." I just love the idea of that. It's just like, yeah, give me all the power. I'll massively increase the city's income through prostitution and gambling. Yeah, I can get this sorted out.
Well, that's pretty much what Littlefinger did.
It's like Al Swearington is like he's like Chad, not short Tyrion.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting series. Do you ever think you'll try reading the books?
I only have the first one, and it was just uncomfortable with the amount of pedophilia that's in it, because all the characters are like 3 or 4 years younger than they are in the show.
It's not exactly pedophilia.
Yeah, it's still maybe a little uncomfortable.
Right.
I think George R. R. Martin's a bit of a pervert.
That's definitely partially the case. George R. R. Martin has some issues. I think the number one thing with George R. R. Martin that you have to understand is he is a man who is very much at war with himself. That's the impression that I get. Because on some levels, I think his work is really celebrating the medieval era. Like just kind of paying a tribute to it. And he obviously really likes architecture. And like sometimes like the religious parts of it or the like chivalry parts of it are played completely straight. And then sometimes they're
Well, I actually read the books that he drew the most inspiration from, or I read the first one. We had to read it for a class in my college because my main history professor was like really based. He was like an ex-Marine, had like he was like an Italian devout Catholic and really, really conservative, which I'm amazed he was able to be a professor at a liberal arts college. But like he had us read the Iron King, which is part of like the Iron King series by Maurice Drouin, who is in real life he's like a decorated French resistance hero, and it's all about the prelude up to the 100 Years' War, with like Philip IV of France and I can't remember if it's Henry II of England. And it's just like, and like there's a quote on the cover of it, and it's George R.R. Martin saying, "This is the real Game of Thrones," or "This is the original Game of Thrones."
To me, the most books similar to Game of Thrones is probably Dune. The first, just Dune in general.
I've never read it. I'm a bad reactionary geek.
Yeah, Dune is really good. At least the first one. It gets really fucking weird after that. Well, the whole series is really weird, but I kind of like that.
So, speaking of things that are really fucking weird, so what are your thoughts on the dub of Evangelion on Netflix? Because I don't have a Netflix account anymore, and I wouldn't watch it anyway.
I watched it for like 5 seconds. No, I watched like 5 minutes of it. Why is Shinji voiced by a tranny? That's what I want.
Wait, he is?
Yeah, literal tranny. Like, I'm not saying as an insult, like a literal fucking tranny voice is Shinji.
Well, I really don't want to watch it now.
No, like literally, that's yeah. So it's bad. They fucked up the translation. It's just, it's just not very good. In general,
I mean, there's a free site called Watch Cartoons Online where you can basically watch any cartoon or any anime that has dubs or subs for free. It's not
I think the one I use is Anime Land. Yeah, animeland.us has like every dubbed anime.
It's there. I was able to watch because Kuro Makuro, or finish watching it, which is a pretty interesting series. Essentially, it's Inuyasha mixed with Evangelion, and it's like, and it because it's like aliens are attacking Earth, and they have to fight back in these mech suits, and the main character is named Kenosuke, who is a samurai from 450 years in the past, and like he helped fight what he calls them the ogres originally, and then like I guess they are now
angels?
Coming. Yeah, they're actually just like, well, that's a spoil. I don't want to spoil it, but they're not really angel. It's not similar. They're much closer to just like sentient aliens. But like, what's interesting is like, this seems to be, I think it's sort of like a based female fantasy of like this, because he's like this like ultra Chad alpha coming back, from the 450 years ago, now living in the present, and like all the other men around him are like just weak and effeminate because that's what the modern age has done to them. And like half the cast from the Danganronpa games is in it.
I never played any of the Danganronpa games.
The requirements for liking it is if you're very tolerant of anime and you like murder mysteries and you're okay with some bizarre plot holes for the sake of it being really, really weird and awesome.
Are they super long?
Depends, because they're like 90. No, it's like 80% visual novel, 20% like logic puzzles.
Right.
Oh, weren't we going to talk about the elections?
Yeah, sure. So did you watch either of the debates?
Nope, and I wish I had.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
I think I know the general gist of it, and I watched your video on it, and I liked what the Nazbol guy said. He called Tulsi Gabbard "Mommy GF."
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good guy.
If they ever do more of these debates, I'd like to join you sometime.
Oh, okay, sure. We'll try to figure it out. It's just the thing is not that I don't like inviting people. It's just doing the getting everybody to show up at the same time. It can be.
Well, thankfully, my job right now has me working starting work at 3:30 a.m., so I generally have most time when people are awake off.
Right. Although you probably have to go to bed pretty early, I'd imagine.
Or very late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so so I watched it. I think that your country's like because Nazgul Gang, or I will just use his new name, Serp, has been telling me for a long time America's dead, America's gonna fall apart, everything is completely like screwed. I'm like, oh, it's not that bad, it can't be that bad. But after watching the Democratic debate, I'm completely black-pilled on America.
Well, I think Trump is almost certainly going to win. I give him like a 70% chance of winning the re-election, not just because all the candidates are insane, but also just the because incumbents always have an edge over people trying to unseat them. But the problem is that I think what could screw Trump is the fact that it feels like he's basically been boomerfied. He's like and like his core young white male audience that helped propel him to the presidency, like they're the ones sort of unironically doing the Yang Gang and all that.
See, the thing about Trump and why I've always given him a big pass is, to be fair to him, literally everybody in government is trying to screw him. And not just the Democrats, but also the Republicans are trying to screw him. So there's those aspects to it. There's also, I'm trying to think about the other stuff. Okay, so there's that. Also, there was the investigation that went on for like a year.
Aren't the Democrats still pretending that it's going on?
Yeah, they're still doing it. Like I don't. So I mean, that stuff all exists.
Honestly, at this point, I hope the Russians intervene in our elections.
Yeah, so you have that aspect to it. You also have, like I said, basically everyone around him has betrayed him, and like it's like Tommy Wiseau. Everyone betrayed me. I'm fed up with this world.
Everybody betrayed me, and honestly, I'm fed up with this world.
I'm not saying Trump hasn't screwed up or failed to deliver on some of his promises. My point is just to be sort of fair to him. He's had to deal with a lot of shit.
I think one of the biggest things is because now, even though he had months, without real court challenges completely blocking his emergency national declaration of national emergency, even though he didn't build any of the wall during that time, which that's probably the time he could have done it. Like, of course, our evil Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals blocked it. Now the state of emergency doesn't exist anymore. It's been blocked because we apparently have we have a shadow Supreme Court that can basically, act as a Supreme Court, but not, actually be the Supreme Court, called the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yeah, America is basically a critarchy now. The Supreme Court just has absolute power, and it doesn't seem to matter how many Republicans they appoint to a certain degree because of John Roberts.
I think Distributist said like the problem is that judges swing left where judges drift left, whereas priests drift right.
The thing with it is, Scalia would often vote with the left wing of the Supreme Court because he viewed his job as interpreting the ruling in the way the Constitution said. So they would get him to vote on. I'm trying to think how to describe it. They would manipulate it into a situation where voting with them, even if he didn't agree with their conclusion, like how they viewed it, was the originalist. So that's how they tend to do it.
Now, again, of course, the original intention of the Supreme Court is not for every president to be able to appoint judges that are politically aligned with him or his party, but to, help interpret the Constitution. The problem is that, like, as with most of American politics and why the right keeps failing, or one of the reasons the right keeps failing, is that the Democrats clearly do not care about fairness, actual political discussion, reason, or any of that. They have their agenda, and they will do whatever they can to implement it. Whereas Republicans are like, well, we still need to play fair.
That's the issue with good guys.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't good at subterfuge. They just aren't.
Yeah. And it's why I think I despise conservatives or conservatism more than the left, because there's that like famous quote from Cicero where he talks about like, the enemy outside, like they're not really all that dangerous because you know who they are, you know what they want, but the biggest problem is the traitors within. And boomers used to just say that about Obama, but it's like, no, that's actually conservatives. Like anybody that actually wants to help fix things, i.e., the dissident right, they immediately shut them down, and every conservative will always become left wing eventually because naturally that's how it works, because they're going to conserve. That's how you get John French and a bunch of other people going. There's literally an article now called "The Conservative Case for Drag Queen Storytime."
Yeah. And the conservative case for transsexualism and all that kind of stuff.
I have my cases, put them in a fucking oven, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I found interesting is, and I've complained many, many times about Justin Trudeau and how radical he is. Justin Trudeau has never said anything nearly as radical as what the Democratic candidates were saying. I've never heard him say we need to have unlimited immigration. We can have no border controls whatsoever, and we can let illegal immigrants vote. Like I never really heard him say things like that. He wants to massively increase legal immigration, but and he wants to bring in like a lot of refugees. But I don't think he's
quote refugees.
Yeah, but I don't think he's ever said just allowing literally everybody across the border.
So my question is, do you think he's going to win re-election?
Justin? Okay, so I'll have to do a Canadian election video at some point because it's actually going to be pretty interesting. Basically, how Canada works is we have a 2.5 party system.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Liberals, Conservatives, and then we have the NDP, which is a socialist party. And then we have a French separatist party and a couple others. And the NDP has lost virtually all of its public support to the Green Party.
Wait, which party is Trudeau part of?
The Liberal Party.
Okay.
So he's liberal. Not that there's a huge difference between them. One of the election issues is the Conservatives want to punish returning members of ISIS, and Justin Trudeau doesn't want to punish returning members of
because
ISIS.
This is something that should be a very debated issue. It is not absolutely 100% clear cut.
No, they refuse to do it. They said there's no evidence. There's not enough evidence for it.
They're brown. They can't do anything wrong. What are you talking about?
They have like one of the guys hosts a podcast called The Jihadi, where he talks about how he used to behead people when he was a member. No, like I'm not joking. Like this is real. And they're like, we don't have enough evidence to actually convict him. Oh, sorry, just in the chat, Lux at Lex says, love you, Fritz. We need more.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what else to make videos on. The thing I really want to make a video on, I have two ideas mulling around right now. It's one I've had for a while, is an analysis or a review of the Star Wars, The Clone Wars from 2003 and why it's awesome and is better than most of the movies. And the other thing is like comparing the gameplay between Valkyria Chronicles and XCOM, because they're very, very similar games, and there's not a lot of like tactical turn-based shooters.
Yeah, I like I beat Valkyria Chronicles 1 and 2 earlier. Sorry, 1 and 4 earlier this year, because they're both on Switch, and I don't have a PSP.
Is there any way to get 2 and 3 then, or are they just like completely separate things?
I don't know. You might have to emulate them. It's like this. So I'm playing Disgaea, which is kind of like that now.
Is that the one with the lollies?
I think so. It's the one with the penguins.
Okay, the penguin lollies.
Damned souls in Disgaea have to wear penguin suits until they accumulate enough positive karma to be reincarnated.
Because of course this is a Japanese game.
Because Japan is.
It's like in Catherine, how the men in purgatory are all just dressed as sheep. They don't know that they're sheep.
Yeah, I haven't played Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big Atlus fan. Like Atlus makes excellent products. They are like all really, really weird and messed up.
For me, essentially, I watched Joseph Anderson. Have you heard of him?
No, I don't.
He does like very, very, very good in-depth like reviews and critiques and analysis of video games. But he also streams, and like he streamed Persona 5 and he streamed Catherine, and like the thing I like about him is he has like a nice paternal, authoritative sort of style, as opposed to like I'm a 20-something asshole that like just screams at the camera, because he's sort of based, because he's both a husband and a father of now 3 children, whereas I think 90% of like these reviewers, even if they're married, don't have any kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
He made a video.
But,
anyway, no, never mind. Go ahead.
I got Bloodstained Ritual of the Night the other day.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, what I got for the Steam Summer Sales, I got the Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls, which is the spin-off game where instead of like a murder mystery similar to Ace Attorney type, it's like a third-person just shooter action game, and I'm actually liking it a lot more than I thought I would. And I got the XCOM games, and I just got like I got like a big bundle thing of like all the Fallout 4 DLC and the Skyrim Special Edition.
War of the Chosen's really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for XCOM too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like the setting of I just started it, but I think I like the setting a little more of you being resistance against the aliens, because you get to be literal xenophobes.
I'm gonna let you. Okay, what you might want to do is on Steam Workshop. There's a mod that disables the avatar timer, so you might want to get that, because the avatar countdown like ruins the game in my opinion.
Okay.
But anyway, sorry. Back to the election for a minute. So someone a very good friend of mine described the difference. Actually, he was talking about the difference between the United Kingdom and Sweden, as to like how they're both kind of totalitarian, but England is just goes much further. And it's kind of like the difference between Canada and America on this. Canada is a Melvin who's being cucked, and the United States is a Chad who's being cucked.
Who's Melvin?
It's like the I don't know. It's like the.
Is he like the Virgin? Okay.
Yes. So America legitimately believes that Gonzalez is his son. Like 100% is convinced Gonzalez is his son, and so is Canada. But America's America, so they pursue that in a very non-pussy way.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like what happens with the UK, because the UK is a Chad who thinks Ahmed is his son, whereas Sweden's a Melvin who thinks Ahmed is his son.
Mm-hmm.
Is how he described it.
But, so yeah, I was asking, like, do you think Trudeau's going to win re-election?
Basically, as I was saying, because the third parties are very weak, it makes it very likely that there will be a majority government. It is literally statistically tied in the swing provinces.
Sorry, they're firing fireworks off. Oh yeah, and Giannis Santana. Yeah, I am from New York. I'm from upstate New York, so I'm near Toronto.
From best New York.
Yeah, they fly Confederate flags here. And we have like beautiful vineyards a mile away from my house. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of wine they grow in southern Ontario.
Mm-hmm. I like our region is sort of similar to the German wine growing region of the Rhineland, so it's a little cooler, wetter, and it makes for like some nice like sweeter wines like Rieslings. Because
Yeah.
I've discovered that like middle-aged white women can't really be human because how on earth do they drink Chardonnay? Because I thought, you know what wine needs? You know what wine needs? It needs the fresh taste of gasoline.
Do they put gasoline in it?
No, but it tastes like Chardonnay is just disgusting.
I don't know. I don't drink, so I don't really know, but I'll take your word for it. I could see it being bad, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I know my mother drinks a lot of wine.
Yeah, it's
Well, not a lot, but everything seems a lot to me since I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, now I sound like I have a problem. But it's like I think it probably
No, you don't. It's just I just don't because
I'm literally drinking alcohol right now.
no, I just felt for my part, I felt if you like suffer from severe depression, you should probably just
Mm-hmm.
stay away from things that will tempt you to self-medicate.
Yeah, and I don't drink it to self-medicate or any of that.
No, I know. No, you can control yourself. I probably could not. So, yeah. So I don't know. The Evangelion dub is like, I don't really care that much about it, but it's
I'm fine with the original dub, even though
I didn't get why the original. Why couldn't they just redo the original like with a better recording?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was thinking. Do you know? So Evangelion's, you would say, is still your favorite anime?
Yeah.
I think. Have I told you what mine is?
What?
It's Eden of the East. Have you heard of that?
Oh, that was. Oh, okay.
Everybody,
Shots fired.
everybody, I say like that too. I have another friend, and Cortex mentioned him, Snake is Ninja. He hates it too, but it's my favorite, and I don't know why. I guess it's because I love the animation. I like the fact that they have like, oh wait, they have like a British band do the opening, which is like really ballsy. Is like takes a lot of balls not to just have like a Japanese opening, but like I think it ends basically saying, yeah, monarchy is actually a good idea.
Yeah, we watched that back at the anime club in university for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was never a fan.
All right, that's fine.
Um, but it wasn't the worst anime I've ever watched is Familiar of Zero, like by far.
What is that about?
I don't even want to talk about it. It's just like ugh,
I can tell you the most disappointing anime I've ever seen is
uh,
Susanoo Gargantia. Like I think it's like somebody described it. It's like Waterworld the anime. It's about like their like climate change destroys the Earth and plunges it into a new ice age, and like half the population goes off into space and like forms this like hyper militant like regimented society where they have to fight like space plants, and then like one of them gets lost in a time in like a wormhole, and he he's back on Earth, but like now the climate has warmed and I guess like the entire Earth is flooded and everybody lives in these giant ships. And the first 4 episodes is like fun fish out of water stuff of like him learning to be part of like a nice of like a of like a actual culture and society again. And then like episode 5 is a beach episode. Episode 6 is like more fan service, and it just plummets. So if I ever make a video about it, I know the perfect title is Waterworld the anime sucks.
Waterworld the anime. That's an interesting thing they choose to copy. I don't know. I think Waterworld was that bad. I mean,
I
it
never
wasn't.
saw it. I think I want to look. I want to check it out.
I like it was not like great, but I think the reason why it was people thought it was bad was because of how expensive it was, given that it was a how expensive it was to make relative to the quality, because it really does kind of look like a B sci-fi movie or something.
Yeah,
Like it
I
doesn't look
was
very good.
watching. I don't know how familiar you are with Red Letter Media, but I was watching their
Yeah.
commentary of the original Alien movie, and it's like they said like they pointed this out that originally Alien was like going to be like produced by Roger Corman, and like it was just going to be like a cheesy sci-fi B movie, and like they said like you could just easily imagine how like that whole like what that movie would have been like, and it's like thank God Ridley Scott and the other people that did it, because especially like on a Blu-ray, the original Alien movie is like absolutely gorgeous. I think it's like it's possibly the best looking movie I've ever seen.
Right. Think here. Yeah, so I got have you played any of the Castlevania games?
Nope.
Okay, because Bloodstained Ritual of the Night came out, so I just got that, and I've been enjoying that quite a bit.
I keep thinking I'll like the Metroidvania type because I got Hollow Knight, and it's like, yeah, it's fine, but like 2D Dark Souls.
The other ones aren't that hard. I think Hollow Knight is like the hardest, or one of the hardest of that genre. The other Castlevania games look a lot easier than that.
It's weird going from something like that is a genuinely like difficult, challenging game experience to like say like now I'm like replaying Fallout 4 or like an easier game. It's just like I don't, after playing so many hours of Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3, I I I don't know how I'm gonna react to going to playing Skyrim again, where you're basically just you're two guys with you're two guys in a slat fight, and one of you, or you have a very very weak flamethrower. Somebody asked me what my opinion is on Gundam. The only Gundam I've ever seen is like half of the original 1979 Gundam, and that was that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Because people talk about, oh, anime today looks terrible, but it's like, no, like literally there's a scene in the first episode where our car is driving down like a hill, and the frame rate is at like 5 frames a second.
Someone's asking about Gundam Zero and Gundam Unicorn.
No, never seen any of that.
The only Gundam I watched Wing, and I watched like one episode of Seed, and I didn't really like Seed, so I never really watched more of it than that. They're saying, oh, sorry, go on.
I had an interesting thought about how, like, we all know how, like, it's sort of generally understood how, like, the kaiju, the, Godzilla and all that was sort of Japanese, sort of trying to internalize the powerlessness of being nuked twice. I almost feel like the mecha genre is sort of a response to that, of like, well, what our response to that is building these, is we can build these giant robots that are at least somewhat capable of facing these almost unstoppable forces of nature.
That's an interesting interpretation.
Like there's a gorgeous shot from the original Evangelion of like Unit 01 just like in front of like a red sunset or like a red sun rising, and it's like, yeah. Right. I know. They're like, when I like take away like all the like personal drama and all of that, and like the more broad story of Evangelion, I just love it looking at it as like a science fiction show.
What I like about it is, I think, is like how the technology's all like very 90s. Like it's like you have these super advanced robots, but they have like all these really just primitive like cogs and wheels, and things are powered by like hydraulics, and it just all gives a very primitive, scrapped together look. Also, I find just with the sound effects and the way it's animated, they really kind of convey how big and powerful.
Just the actual, the look of everything and just the detail and all that. I think that like by far my favorite scene from it is, I can't remember which episode, but it's when Shinji's Ava just completely goes nuts, and it's like the animation changes to it looks like animalistic.
I think
And
that. Oh yeah, I know which one. That's
and it's like it just starts like eating the angel, and like one of the people in Nerve just like vomits. So just like, yeah, that's the real that's a realistic reaction, because it's awesome, but it's also just disgusting.
I like one of the things I like about the Avas is how, because they're biomechanical, like how
Yes,
they move in a much more
organic.
fluid manner. Yeah, that do like Gundams or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Because the original Gundam, and I think Gundam, yeah, it is very 70s, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which the 70s is sort of is pretty cool. But um, another one of my favorite animes is, if you've, I don't, it's not very well known. It's called Night Raid 1931. And I just love the premise of it, and it executes it pretty well, because the premise of it is actually quite easy for an anime, quite easy to describe, which is the Japanese X-Men in 1930s Shanghai.
That sounds like the most aggressively Japanese thing possible.
Yeah, because it's about like these like four young people with like superhuman powers that are like employed by somebody, like by a secret organization of the Japanese government, to like help solve political disputes in 1930s Shanghai. And it's like it deals with like trying to stop the Communist Party, and literally an entire episode is devoted to none of the characters, but just it, retelling the Mukden and incident, or the incident when the Japanese took over Manchuria.
Right.
It's basically like, did you like the setting of Legend of Korra, but you hated everything else? You'll like this.
I admit I never watched Legend of Korra.
I watched the first 3 seasons. Oh no, Mauritian's here. That's fine.
Why'd you say, oh no?
No, it's a joke. Hey, hi, Mauritian, how are you? But yeah, it's pretty cool. What else was I gonna say? The thing I think the Japanese actually do really well when they embrace it is just sort of Shintoism, because another one of my favorites is called Mushishi, which is basically like a witch doctor goes around fixing problems with something.
Oh yeah, I've seen Mushishi.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and it's like the most relaxing thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. What was I thinking of again?
But speaking of Japan, I remember, because my last video was why I thought the show Designated Survivor was so terrible, because I was not prepared for, because in short, it's like, okay, now I've learned I'm never watching a modern Western made show again, because I couldn't believe how blatant the left-wing propaganda of it was.
Right.
But I also watched the first 5 episodes at the same time of Man the High Castle. And the reason why I couldn't keep watching it is because I understood why the writers did this. But in it, like, they say, like, well, the Bible's been banned in both like Japanese occupied West Coast and in the Nazi occupied eastern part of America, where it's like, no, that would never happen. Because the thing is, if the Japanese wanted any hope of successfully occupying the West Coast, they'd have to be extremely lenient and, allow a lot of autonomy. And the thing is, they wouldn't ban Christianity, because in 1940, the Japanese government officially recognized Christianity as one of the official religions of Japan.
Right.
So you wouldn't have scenes where, like, one of the characters, like, family members die because they're trying to get information out of him, and like he's a quarter Jewish, so that's enough for them just to gas them. But like at their funeral, they're at a church and they replace like the altar with like a giant statue of Buddha. I'm like, yeah, that wouldn't happen.
I mean, there's that. The other thing is, sorry, I'm just losing my train of thought here. Yeah. I just didn't really like how, isn't like the whole thing like about them trying to fix the timeline, quote unquote, or something like that?
I think that's where it just starts. Yeah, but it's like, because the thing is, it seems like I think Distributus made a good point. He was talking about this before Game of Thrones ended, and he sort of half called it where it's like the writers knew they can't make Westeros the United States of America, and it seems like that sort of has to be the mindset of anybody writing today. Is like things have to the state of the society or the world has to go towards something that's liberal and democratic.
Yeah, and that was just kind of my issue with it. Like, oh, I never got it. I never watched it. Was I felt it would just be them trying to undo the alternate history rather than any kind of like actual exploration of the alternate history.
Not them having to deal with it.
Not like what does this mean for the world? It's just, oh, we have to immediately go and hit the reset button.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten enough of that from Star Wars. I don't need more.
Oh God, sorry. Like I feel like I have to see the last movie, but like I know I'm going to hate it.
I really don't want to see it, but I disinvested. But I have to do a review of it.
I mean, it's gonna be terrible. Because the thing is like, as I guess we learned from Game of Thrones, is that like writers now they don't have the ability to even, you know, write something that's going to satisfy just the SJWs or like be a very, very cliched, everybody expected ending. They just don't know how to write anything.
Well, they're hacks. I mean, that's part of the my biggest issue is that not even that they rebooted it, it's that they banned people from making any content in the original continuity.
It's not that they banned it; they just said like any of the the decades worth of the expanded universe. They said nope, all that's gone. That doesn't mean anything anymore.
No, you aren't allowed to make any new content in that continuity.
Like officially?
No, like at all.
So like you can't write fan fiction or anything?
No, you can, but they won't let people write any books in that time period. Like they didn't even just say, okay, we're gonna have two separate continuities. They actively
That's what they did with Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm gonna have an unpopular opinion. I actually think The Force Awakens is worse than The Last Jedi.
I think in the meta, probably.
I was less bored watching The Last Jedi.
So for you, it's sort of like your difference between Marvel and DC.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. It was more interesting. Like it was atrocious. Don't get me wrong. It was an absolutely wretched movie, but it was like less boring and it was a little more interesting.
It's when your jaw is on the floor and you can't believe what they're doing is sort of fun. Especially if it's like a massive movie that just completely fails.
I mean, it was really bad. Both of them were bad. You know what's funny? Benioff and Wise, the guys who did Game of Thrones, rush the ending so they can go and work on Star Wars. I'm like, no, they're gonna. Well, they can't really ruin it because it's already been ruined. But, yeah.
I'm just curious of like if they're. I'm wondering what are they gonna do about the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie? Because when are they gonna set it? Like when he's just.
I think that got canceled.
Oh, wonderful! Thank goodness.
I think it got canceled because of how bad Solo did.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm one of the few people that liked Rogue One a lot, and it's for me. It's like I don't know why, but for some reason the movie is just I liked it. Maybe because everybody died, and like I felt something.
It was just because it was very generic and it wasn't really like offensive.
Yeah.
It was like very like it felt like it was written by a focus group.
You wanted it's like you wanted Star Wars porn, they gave you Star Wars porn.
Yeah, at least some Star Warsy stuff happens in it.
Unlike, hey, we're gonna burn all the original we're going to burn the original Jedi texts and Yoda's gonna laugh.
It pissed me off how Luke said he never read them. Like, what was that about? The clips of Mark Hamill shitting on the movie are like some of the great are so funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's
He should have.
what do you? It's the longest movie.
I just fundamentally disagree with everything you're doing with this character.
But they didn't want to listen to me. The Jedi doesn't give up. I just love how defeated he was. It's like when they were interviewing the actors for the last season of Game of Thrones. Literally all of them said that it sucked.
You know, I was thinking is like I don't know if I should write it, but like if I did write a fan fiction, I thought of like about like a bunch of humans that end up fighting for the Confederacy in the Clone Wars. Because I actually think if you had people writing it, the prequels could have been awesome and based. Because it's basically the story of how a corrupt, decadent democracy gets destroyed because it's corrupt and decadent.
I actually really like the prequels. At least Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith is probably my favorite Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Revenge of the Sith.
Even when Anakin Skywalker is transported to the Emperor Palpatine Surgical Reconstruction Center.
Why was that? What was wrong with that?
No, I was just talking about the name. That was the official name. Is apparently Palpatine. The first thing he did after becoming Emperor was name a hospital after him.
Well, why not?
Yeah, well, he's the best thing of any of those movies.
I mean, someone pointed it out to me when talking about what's his name?
Ian McDiarmid?
No, not Ian McDiarmid. Hayden Christensen. Someone pointed out that people complain about his acting. If you look at like his facial expressions, he does really good facial expressions. The issue, I think, is just George Lucas can't write dialogue. I mean, that's something he's never been good at.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, because I was thinking like there'd be a scene in the thing I'd write where the main character ends up managing to kill a Jedi, and like people like back at base, people are like amazed by it, and sort of like how people that would be fighting against the Republic would feel is like they would just be justifiably like hate and despise the Jedi, because it's like these are people that are supposed to be these sort of impartial guardians of peace and like resolve conflicts objectively, but it's like here they are not only just unquestioningly siding with the Republic, but now they're generals and leading the armies of the Republic. It's like, we hate the Jedi now. We sort of have good reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of once again like different from a lot of people in these circles where I actually really like the Jedi. What was cool is during the Dark Age of the Republic, you had Jedi Lords who had castles, which is like
was it not like a weird sexless cult?
Marriage has always been restricted. It really depends upon what time period it is. Sometimes it's more restricted and sometimes it's less. The fear was always that they would just make themselves hereditary rulers of the Republic, which would have been better, to be honest.
Yes. But speaking of which, just like I guess like if you're a fan of the HRE, the Holy Roman Empire, you like the ending of Game of Thrones because they basically turn Westeros into an elective monarchy.
I mean, I guess. Like, here's the thing about the Old Republic. A lot of people diss it because it's a republic, but keep in mind it's not a liberal democracy. It's like a federation of monarchies, republics, theocracies, and all kinds of other different types of governments. It's not a liberal democracy by any stretch of the imagination.
And that's the thing, is people have this idea that like a republic or a democracy has to necessarily follow the guidelines of liberal post-Enlightenment thinking, where no. The Roman Republic, despite they had concepts like liberty, you could not like apply a term like it was liberal.
Well, it's a republic because there's no monarch, is basically,
and there's elected rulers.
Yeah, although once again, like it's it depends upon the system. Like in the Eldaron system, the heir to the throne is always appointed as senator. Whereas in some places it's elected, in some places it's a hereditary position.
That's why I always say when people like, you know, how they're in the United States, there's the discussion of abolishing the electoral college or not, and it's like, well, I think my solution is far better, which is no, we should abolish the popular vote and just like have a set class of like princely electors that decide who the president is.
My friend Sir Kerp, eventually I'll be able to stop referring to him as Nazgul Gang. He thinks that there shouldn't be elections for at the national level because he thinks people just aren't capable of really comprehending it. Like he thinks that
now. I mean, the thing is, I do generally agree with sort of, you know, the sort of Burkean and like John Adams-esque idea of that, like, if you want, let's like, you know, we like having a liberal republic or, you know, an emphasis on liberty, but like the only way it works is if you have people that are devoutly Christian and, you know, morally upright. And you could question if it back 200 years ago, but certainly now, like, I think this is essentially what Hobbes was talking about. Though I think in his context, he was probably looking at like the English Civil War and the 30 Years' War of like, wow, human beings are horrible monsters to each other. We should not be giving them. The last thing we should be doing is giving them the power to oppress each other.
Yeah, so his preference is for but I think democracy works pretty well at a local level.
Mm-hmm.
I think
if you could go to the house and speak with the person that you might put in charge of your community, then I think that might be okay.
I don't think it works. But the issue is at a national level, I don't think people can really grasp the issues properly.
Mm-hmm.
Nor really should they have to. Like people say that like, oh, it's they're stupid or whatever, but that's not.
Yeah, the thing is, like, it feels like this shouldn't be normal, and it feels like it's an undue burden on the average person to ask them, you have to make this informed choice, you know, of like foreign policy, the economy, taxation, and all of that. You know, even though all you really want to do is just live a normal life, you should.
Well, no, you have to decide like foreign policy in Iraq, like something like people don't know that. I don't even know how to address these things, and I am educated on the issue. It's not really fair. Like I don't know. It's one of the issues with the current order. I think honestly the best form of government is I like what they have in like Russia and Hungary.
So illiberal republics.
Yeah, where it's basically a one-party state, but there's legitimate opposition and relative freedom of the press.
Mm-hmm.
Also in those cases,
Well, maybe not in Russia.
No, but there is like the Communist Party is a real opposition party.
Yeah.
It's not just like the other opposition parties are fake, but it's real at least, and at least because you need an opposition to keep the powers that be honest and to like propose ideas and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of like having the one party that's like a broad right wing party. Like United Russia has like religious conservatives, nationalists, like people who want a free market.
I know Japan is somewhat similar, even though the Liberal Democratic Party is more center right.
It's the Liberal Democrats are interesting. Factionalism has always been a big part of it. So like the right wing faction is like Shinzo Abe's faction. Mm-hmm. So like that's one of them, but then you also have kind of more moderate ones. It's pretty diverse, but it's a fairly right wing thing. Like
the last thing you want to hear about Japan is diversity.
But it's an interesting system. The I don't think like the liberal Democrats would ever like legalize gay marriage, for instance, or
No.
The big issue that they're trying to deal with is the emperor isn't technically the head of state in Japan, which I find kind of disgusting, to be
What
honest.
is he?
He doesn't have a role in the constitution. He's
Okay.
just kind of there, which bothers me a lot. But one of the revisions to the constitution they want to make, if they ever get a 2/3 majority, is a clause that literally just says the emperor is the head of state.
Can we also go back to him being, divine? No.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. If Japan ever became Christian, I'd be willing to just give the emperor divine right. Well, he does have divine right. I don't know. It kind of disgusts me. Japan has an emperor, and it always has an emperor, and it always will have an emperor.
I think Japan is like first off, Japan is the last empire on Earth, and it's like the oldest running dynasty in the world or in history.
I think it might be the longest. It's hard to tell.
It goes back at least 2,000 years.
Because it depends what you consider a dynasty. Because like you could argue that, which I tend to count, like the Capetians, the Bourbons, the Valois, and the Orleans is all the same dynasty because they were just cadet branches. But
I did love this is because there's all the thing on Twitter of how the general consensus among trads on Twitter is that 364 days a year we will bash America as being this evil Freemason, corrupt evil system, and then on the 4th of July we're just like, fuck you Europe, whores, USA. And people made the point that you actually can't really call Americans traitors because there hasn't been a legitimate king in England since Henry VIII, since Pope Pius VI, excommunicated and condemned Elizabeth as a heretic, and basically said nobody in England has any obligation to swear allegiance to Elizabeth since she's a false heretic queen.
I don't know. I like Elizabeth personally. But...
The first?
Oh no, the second.
Oh, okay. Because apparently I heard Elizabeth I, she killed more Catholics than Mary killed Protestants.
Mm-hmm.
Which is whenever I play EU4, I love playing as Spain, and I basically you know how we have America has a Zionist occupied government? I basically have an Irish occupied government where I just do whatever Irish province wants to help bring down England.
Right.
Well, because I also plan on restoring the Roman Empire, so I just say, well, England's ours.
Uh-huh.
The thing that I hate, though, is in one of the newer updates, they made it so that where you can only put your capital in the continent that you have the most development in. So I can't basically say we're the new Carthaginian Empire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Say, I'm glad that the Carthaginians got taken down.
Yeah, I like them because they're one of the people that you're not allowed to like in history, and I obviously get why people are, because the human sacrifice and all that.
They are very interesting. They are one of the weirdest, most random people in history.
And they almost won.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see. Longest dynasties. I don't know. Okay, there's a bunch in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's kind of random. A bunch some Korean ones. What Tong? Oh, okay. China's weird. A lot of countries outside of Christian Europe go through dynasties really quick. The Ottomans are kind of unique in the Islamic world for having such a long dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
The House of Osman lasted a really long time.
Well, it helps when you basically just copied and took over an actually, cool dynasty and empire. That's something, again, I think in like every stream I have to make, at least one saying, well, the distributors pointed this out in a video he like did responding to Dark Matter 2525. Like he made this point of how like both atheist and Islamic historical revisionists basically have to like sweep the existence of the Byzantine Empire under the rug, because for the Christian Dark Ages to work, like you can't just say, well, actually no, but there was this this advanced, still possessed the ancient knowledge Christian empire in the East. Like the Byzantines, who was that?
Well, the thing with the Ottomans is they didn't exactly have primogeniture, but the Byzantines really had no like clear succession system. Like the Ottomans didn't really ever have an issue with rival dynasties overthrowing the House of Osman.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the Byzantines' single biggest issue. Was they never were able to establish a real succession system.
Mm-hmm.
The Ottoman one was funny because you killed all the other claimants to the throne once he was set.
Yeah, that can't have been a good idea. Of like, hey, because I know that it's like, well, Mehmet's my son. You're the thank God you're the firstborn, or you're the most clever because you're just gonna kill all your brothers, aren't you?
Yeah, although that prevented dynastic wars, which were a frequent issue in Europe proper.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like I don't think many Islamic dynasties lasted nearly as long. Like the House of Osman lasted like 800 years or like 700 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any Persian dynasty lasted that long.
Mm-hmm. Oh, everybody misses Persia. Because I
kind of like the Shah.
Because I think about this as like Zoroastrianism is basically like Islam, but not horribly evil.
It's not. It's more like Christianity than it is like.
Yeah,
Islam, so.
just in the sense of like its main sort of holy figure is a prophet.
Yeah, it's kind of the final development of Indo-European religion, which
Until
is funny.
You got Christianity.
I mean,
yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yes.
My issue though with a lot of the LARPers, like I don't get why the LARPers never LARP with Zoroastrianism. They always LARP with like some fucking random like Wotan.
Well, because Zoroastrianism started in the Middle East and they're evil brown people. Even though a lot of them are very white.
Also, it's probably like too philosophical and intelligent for them.
And it probably it's a step too close to an actual religion.
Yeah. I actually know a lot about Zoroastrianism. Was something I was very interested in when I was younger. So I've actually studied it a lot. I think it was my personal opinion is that Zoroaster was actually a prophet. I think he was. His description of the Messiah is very similar to Jesus. The Seyo Shant or whatever it is.
Because I think a lot of this problem with the alt-right has is like the fact because of Islam, like the southern half of the West or the known world was lost because, say, circa 600 AD, like North Africa and the Levant was mostly Christian and like familiar with Western Roman, Greco-Roman.
Even like parts of Central Asia. Well, keep in mind, like the Scythians came from like northern Iran or wherever.
And
they were
at the very least, like of course, like Alexandria was obviously a Greek city. Tons of cities, like they say, like, oh well, Christianity is evil because it came from an evil desert cult. But it's like, but that desert cult or whatever was well within the bounds of the Roman Empire. They had a Roman governor,
right?
And I'm sorry, but like Saint Boniface chopped down your trees, but stop crying about it. I liked how there was a theory that the Carthaginians actually discovered America.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, no, an Irish monk did and all that. I think it's sort of sad, but like they've apparently they've debunked the 1421 claim of when the Chinese discovered the New World.
That was always kind of a meme.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge meme. I think I don't think it's impossible that
Mm-hmm.
some Asians went there. I don't think it's impossible because it's like that whole thing that
I mean, they went there in 10,000 BC. Obviously, there's a land bridge across the Bering Strait, but you like it's not unfeasible to that say an Asian country could have made a trek not dissimilar to how the Vikings went across through the north, since there is.
no, like it's certainly possible someone like just got blown across the ocean or something.
I actually made a like fantasy scenario wherein like what if in like 200 AD some Han Chinese sailors went to America and like taught the Native Americans their like Confucianism and like writing and all of that, and you got this like flourishing Native American civilization in the West Coast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, I'm kind of getting tired. Was there anything else major you wanted to talk about?
I don't know, any video games or any anime or anything you're looking forward to, because I'm so logged with everything that like the thing that like I think what's important is why I wanted to talk about more about cultures, because I love a lot of like these like channels that talk about anime and stuff like that. But the problem is like everybody that talks about every fucking person that talks about these issues is like is like a beta leftist, and it's like there's E semicolon R and Razor Fist that like at least have a substantial
Who
channel.
is Razor Fist? I always hear about him. I've never.
He's like a right wing libertarian metalhead that likes a lot of video games and TV shows.
Right.
He's pretty good. He's really good. He's not. I mean, the whole sort of Sargonite anti-SJW crowd is now looking back. Good riddance is gone. The skeptic community is just completely destroyed. But like, he's like right wing. He's not anti-Christian, even though he's not Christian. But it's like he's generally fairly right wing, and the problem is like he sometimes likes to say he's sort of a contrarian. Like he just arbitrarily says like Fallout New Vegas sucked or Final Fantasy VII sucked. Like I don't like JRPGs, but it's like isn't Final Fantasy considered like one of the greatest games ever made?
I guess I don't like them.
I feel really gypped. It's why I will never ever go to a GameStop ever again. Not least because I think Christian will show up. But I bought Dragon Quest and was like, I'm gonna try and get into a JRPG. I was like 2 hours in. I'm like, this game sucks because like I hate turn-based combat because it's so slow and boring. So like, all right, I have the receipt, I have the bag I bought it in. I didn't play very much. I'm putting it back in the case, and they said, "Nah, you can't return it."
I also just don't like the art style.
Well, the guy who made the art is the guy that does Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Akira Toriyama's art style.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't think I could ever watch. I could never watch Dragon Ball Z because I would not have the time.
Because you're not black.
Isn't that the only? Yeah.
Black people are obsessed with Dragon Ball Z.
Aren't they also obsessed with like making React channels because they don't create anything of their own?
No, but I'm just saying in particular, like
it's terrible.
It's like literally every black person I've ever met online loves Dragon Ball Z. I don't know what it is, but it's like just an observation.
Mm-hmm. I've also, I mean, that's the being somewhat serious for me is like I've noticed how like every React channel, or at least all the React channels, seem to be like black guys doing it.
Okay, let me see what is this guy. Who made this guy? I'm just curious because I have kind of a record of hating.
It's a black man.
No, of hating everything that's made by Square Enix. So let me see who actually made this.
You didn't even like Super Mario RPG?
I mean, that was the only good thing they've made.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Square Enix didn't make it. They published. Okay, that's good. I'm trying to think it. Let me see if there's a single Square Enix game I like. I just like the games that people say are good. Like I didn't like The World Ends With You.
Oh yeah, you hate Nier Automata, that's your shots fired.
Yeah, Nier Automata was
the best game I've ever played.
One of the worst games I've ever played.
I hate you.
It might be the worst.
Ugh.
Let me see. I'm just going through this. Okay.
But, speaking of degeneracy, there's now a recent trend of like vloggers and all of that. Like, they'll go to stores and they'll drink part of the mouthwash and spit it back in the bottle, and like put the cap back on, put it back in the shelf, or like lick ice cream. And the most satisfying thing is people are like them getting arrested. Oh, I have played Just Cause. I played like halfway through Just Cause 2, and I'm like, so this is just like GTA, but I don't feel horrible about murdering the police because they're disgusting communists that hate the CIA.
Oh, it's no, it's okay. So I don't know if I'd call Just Cause a good game, but I beat the 2 and 3. It's a fun game to play while I'm watching anime. Let me see what else we have here. Singularity, that was super mediocre. Now, did they actually make Just Cause, or was that developed by someone else?
I think it was developed by somebody else. It's not a Japanese game.
No, it's not. Okay, I think they were a publisher. Let me see.
It's too serious to be, even though, well, no, it's not serious at all, but.
Okay, I'll give them Kingdom Hearts. I liked Kingdom Hearts too.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Hearts was not bad.
Probably, I don't think I could take Kingdom Hearts even remotely seriously.
Yeah. It's not
also, I fucking hate JRPGs.
I like anything made by Atlus.
You know what? It's because I really liked playing Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones on my Game Boy Advance SP.
Get the other ones.
I have. Was it Fates and the remake they did for my 3DS?
Get Awakening. Awakening's really good.
Yeah, I think I have. Wait, do I have Awakening? I don't know. I don't think I have Awakening. I should get it.
Yeah, get Awakening's really good. I think Awakening's better than Fates. Shadows of Valentia Echoes I thought was okay. I pre-ordered Three Houses. I'm really excited for Three Houses.
Oh, I thought you meant in real IRL. Like you pre-ordered 3?
No, so what had happened?
Pre-order houses now.
Instead of getting a raise, they're like, we'll buy you anything you want as long as it's under $500. So I got a Switch.
Okay.
So
play. What is it called? Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Because I heard that's the funniest game ever made.
I played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 for 3DS, and it was.
Well, apparently the second one is we're going to basically make a parody of anime. Because there's literally lines in it where they're like, we'll beat them with the power of friendship.
Yeah, but I like anything Atlus puts that. Even though Atlus are really big trolls and their games often have they just particularly some of their older games, just there's a great deal of randomness. In Strange Journey, one of the bosses hits you with random status effects, and if the main character gets petrified, you lose the game, even if you have people in your party that can heal petrification. And just stuff like that. They're kind of assholes. Anyways, man, if you're good, I might just wrap it up here.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to get back to playing Fallout 4.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on, man.
Yeah, it was fun.
Good
Next time
conversation.
you have, there's like something like with the debates or something. I'd love to join in if you let me.
Sure, sounds great. I'll talk
All
to
right,
you
have
then.
a good day.
Good night, everybody.